2350, application for extension of time to file a U.S. income tax return. This is a little bit different because there are some extra words here that are not present in the other IRS form that's used to file for extension of time. Namely, this says for U.S. citizens and residents abroad who expect to qualify for special tax treatment. So before we get into this tax form, let's clarify this a little bit. Most taxpayers, if they need an extension, will file IRS Form 4868, which is an application for an automatic 6-month extension of time to file their U.S. income tax return. This is kind of a no-brainer for people that may be late in receiving their IRS information. A lot of partners and partnerships or S corporation shareholders, a lot of people that depend on complicated tax situations, business owners, may end up filing for that automatic tax extension simply because they're not able to get all of their documents in time for the normal April 15th timeline. So filing IRS Form 4868 gives them until approximately October 15th of that same tax year, no questions asked. This tax form is a little bit different because this is for U.S. citizens and resident aliens who live abroad who expect to also file IRS Form 2555, which may exclude either foreign earned income or foreign housing expenses. So, and this extension isn't necessarily for them to get the time to put together their tax forms. It's for them to meet the criteria for either the Bonafide residence test or the physical presence test. So this is a relatively straightforward tax form to complete. We're going to spend a little bit more time diving into the details of what is the Bonafide residence test, what is the physical presence test. Fortunately, pretty much all of that information is in this form at some point in the form instructions. So, to understand the purpose of the form, who should file, filing with your tax return, when to file, there's a lot of information, especially step-by-step instructions, that is already in this tax form. What we're going to talk about right now, the Bonafide residence test, that means you're a U.S. citizen who is a bona fide resident of a foreign country or countries for an entire tax year at least, uninterrupted. That's the bona fide residence test, is living in a place that's a foreign country for a period of time that includes an entire tax year. Now, the physical presence test is another similar test where if you're a U.S. citizen or a resident alien who's living in a foreign country, you must be physically present for at least 330 days out of any 12-month period in that country. So this tax return extension request is not necessarily a request for you to gather your tax forms. It's for you to be able to meet one of those two criteria. So let's go ahead and start at the top of the form. We'll walk through, in this case, we're going to be requesting an extension on behalf of our couple, John and Mary Doe, who recently moved to Anytown, Australia. Coincidence, they moved from Anytown, Texas to Anytown, Australia. The same postal code, same address, really. 123 Anywhere Road, Anytown, Australia. Well, crikey. So the top part of the tax form is pretty straightforward. Now, there are only lines 1 through 5 here. Line 1, you're going to request an extension of time until a specific date to file, in this case, your calendar year 2023 tax return. So looking at the instructions, you'll want to make sure that you give yourself enough time, basically, you know, so you'll meet the criteria after 12 months for the Bonafide residence test. You can meet the criteria after 12 months from the physical presence test plus 30 days, right? So now if you're allocating moving expenses, then you need to adjust that by 90 days. So let's go back to this. And it shows that we moved to the country in August of 15th of 2023. The qualifying period is August 16th, the next day, to August 15th of 2024. And we're requesting a 90-day extension at the end of that to November 15th, 2024. So appears that we're trying to meet the let's just call it the Bonafide residence test, but it also looks like we're including moving expenses as part of this. Otherwise, we would just be requesting 30 days on top of that. So we did indicate that we're going to allocate moving expenses. We were not previously granted an extension of time to file for this tax year. So, for 2023, at the time we're recording this video, this obviously would be a little too late. It's already past the extension period. But let's imagine that we actually did say we did need that extension of time to file. That's okay. You also will need to enter the amount of income tax that you're paying with this form. So just like with IRS Form 4868, you can receive an extension to file your taxes, but any tax liability that you would owe is due at the original due date. So the April 15th or thereabouts standard deadline still holds regardless of how long you defer your tax filing deadline. So to avoid interest and late payment, you should already have a calculated estimated tax and you should submit the full payment of that estimated tax with this form. So if we put $10,000 here as an estimated tax, then when we actually go to file our Form 1040, you'll want to take credit for that $10,000 payment, and you do that by listing it on line 10 of your IRS Schedule 3. Schedule 3 being additional credits and payments. So that's the tax form, line 10. That's where you would capture this $10,000. So you don't need to write your tax liability on this form. You don't need to estimate it, but you should have a good indication. And then right here, you'll sign and verify that everything that you've submitted is complete and accurate to the best of your knowledge. Now at the bottom, there is a return label that you'll need to complete. And basically the IRS will detach this bottom part. They'll check one of these boxes. Either they've approved your application, they haven't approved it, but they gave you a 45-day grace period until some date that they'll put into that form, and they say that this is a valid extension. They have not approved your application and they're not granting a grace period, or they're not going to consider your application because it was filed after the due date. So if I tried to file this form today, it would probably get turned around because the IRS wouldn't be able to consider it after my late filing. But the most important part is that you do need to complete the return label. So we put John and Mary Doe's name here, address, city, state, and country, right, and then the zip code. Now, some additional questions. When should I file IRS Form 2350? Well, right here it says you should file if 1, you're a U.S. citizen or a resident alien. 2, you expect to qualify for either the foreign earned income exclusion or the foreign housing exclusion by meeting either the Bonafide residence test or the physical presence test, but you won't meet that criteria until after your tax return is due. And then finally, if your tax home is a foreign country, throughout your period of Bonafide residence or physical presence. So you will file this, generally speaking, by paper. You'll have to mail it to the Internal Revenue Service at the address here. You can also turn it into a local office or give it to an employee. You can also use this as an extension for gift or generation skipping transfer tax. You may have to file IRS Form 8892 based on those circumstances. But any outstanding tax liability will be charged interest. You will pay a late payment penalty of 1/2 of 1% of any unpaid tax due per month for every month that it's outstanding up to 25%. After 25%, the calculation stops running. However, if you don't file this form, or you may be subject to a late filing penalty, which is 5% of the tax that's not paid per month or each part of a month up to 25%. So it's a much steeper penalty. After 60 days of being late, the minimum penalty is either $485 or the balance of tax that's due on your tax return, whichever is smaller. Now, if you're expecting a tax refund, then you won't have a penalty because your penalty is calculated based on how much tax you owe. So if you don't owe any taxes, then you're not going to have a penalty. You might not be able to get your refund until you file your tax return, and that would be the incentive for you to eventually file your tax return. So that's all we have for this article. It's a very straightforward tax form. That's all we have for this video, though. You can read the article that we've created. If you go to our website, teachmepersonalfinance.com, type in IRS Form 2350. You can also find the link to our article in our show notes, and we'll put links to the other forms and schedules that we've mentioned in this video also in the show notes there. So if you like our articles, please subscribe to our newsletter, and if you like our YouTube channel, please or our YouTube videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, please post them in the show notes. Thank you very much and have a great day.